former 2016 presidential candidate, former Louisiana governor Bobby Jindal, on all of that. Governor, it is weird, is it not, that you have Democrats desperately trying to protect their turf with safe Democratic states. To be fair, you've had Donald Trump in the position of doing the same in states like Arizona for a while, in Georgia. What's going on?
No, Neil, I think you're exactly right. You know, a couple of weeks ago, Hillary's camp was talking about running up the score. They were talking about campaigning aggressively in Republican states like Georgia and other states that traditionally vote Republican. Now they're going back to solidly blue states. Look, I think voters don't like Hillary Clinton. I think they're ready for a change. The last couple of weeks haven't been good for her. You know, her poll numbers started dropping not just because of the FBI news. You look at the Obamacare premiums going up. You look at some of the WikiLeaks information coming out. So I think there's more anxiety there. I know they're trying to project an air of confidence. I think there's more anxiety there beneath the surface. You know, you were mentioning WikiLeaks and some of this other stuff that's come out, Governor. And one of the things that's very clear is when you were running for president and participating in debates, many of them moderated by CNN and by CNBC, that apparently those participating weren't big fans of the folks whose comments they were moderating, namely yours and your colleagues. Now we hear about bouncing questions off of the Hillary Clinton campaign staff on the part of CNN and just making sure that all was nice with John Podesta at CNBC. What do you think of all that? Well, it reminds me of that scene in Casablanca where they discovered gambling in Rick's Cafe. They were shocked to discover gambling. I'm shocked to hear the mainstream media is collaborating, colluding with the Democratic Party. I think it confirms what a lot of us on the conservative side have long thought, that they're not objective, that the mainstream media does work with the Democrats. I'd say a couple of things. One, to any candidate, look, it shouldn't matter where the questions come from. We've got to be ready for it. It doesn't matter if it comes from the Democratic Party or the media. If you're running for president, you better be ready for the toughest questions. You can't whine about it or complain about it. To the reporters, it strikes me that a lot of them are kind of lazy. They've outsourced their jobs to the Democratic Party. I mean, you don't think they could come up with their own snarky comments or questions. Now, Neil, I say that about everybody except you. You're the exception that proves the rule. It seems like every time I turn on my TV, either between Fox Business and Fox News, you're always on the air. You're the hardest working guy on TV. I hope Fox pays you by the hour.
This worked out exactly as I planned, Governor. So our pre-screening call worked well. No, thank you for that. But I do have a curious thing. Aren't people going to think differently now? I mean, there is an inherent media bias. I think you're right. There's no denying it. I mean, 96% of journalists give to Democrats. But in a lot of these exchanges, it shows something scarier, a very cozy relationship that average voters are completely unaware of. How do you think, regardless of how this election goes, Governor, Republicans should handle that going forward in future debates, in future events, forums, et cetera?
A couple of things. Look, absolutely. I think this is one of the reasons so many millions of voters, not just Donald Trump supporters, some of these who are Bernie Sanders supporters, are so mad and feel like the establishment, that the entire system is rigged against them. I think that's why there's so much anger out there. Secondly, though, I think in terms of where do we go from here, and I do want to say, look, I think there's something very, very different. There's something much worse about Hillary Clinton's campaign getting, for example, CNN debate questions ahead of time. I think that's even worse than the reporters colluding with the Democrats, getting questions from the Democrats for the Republican debates and the Republican candidates. Secondly, though, look, I think when you look at university faculty, when you look at the mainstream media reporters, when you look at Hollywood, overwhelming majority of those participants, leaders in those communities are overwhelmingly of the same ideas. They're all liberal. They talk about diversity. There's really no diversity of opinions or thoughts. I think conservatives have been traditionally underrepresented in those communities, those industries. And I think that as a result, a lot of folks in academic circles, in media circles, really don't understand conservatives. They don't view us as having legitimate views. They view people that go to church. They view people that own guns. They view people that want limited government as being somehow outside of the mainstream. I think it's a bigger problem for the media. I think it's a bigger problem that they don't understand the attitudes of millions of Americans, millions of their consumers, millions of voters. For Republicans, let's not whine about it. Let's not complain about it. Let's just, look, the media's long been biased against us. Let's fight harder to get our message out directly to the voters. With today's social media, there are a lot more platforms, a lot more ways to talk directly to voters. So you're not held hostage by the New York Times editorial board or the Washington Post editorial board. You can go on Fox, you can go on social media.
Well, they all demean you,
there are a lot of ways to talk directly.
And I always say to people, well, are any of you Rhodes Scholars? Because this guy I'm talking to is. Governor, no, all good points. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you, Neil.